Katie's overall. address the Board of Trustees regarding a matter that is not on the agenda must complete a request to address the trustees form and submit it to the recorder before the Pledge of Allegiance. Request to address the board, written or verbal, will not be granted after the Pledge of Allegiance has begun.
Cualquier persona que quiera dirigirse a la mesa directiva referente a un asunto el cual no está en la agenda tiene que llenar la forma petición de dirigirse a la mesa directiva y someterlo al secretario antes del saludo adelantado. Peticiones de dirigirse a la mesa directiva escritas orales no serán permitidas después de que la promesa adelantada haya comenzado.
Thank you. Call to order at 11:01 a.m.
Jesse Tondo, Board President.
Here.
Ernesto Gabriel, Vice President.
Here.
Gilbert Lopez, Board Clerk.
Here.
Edgar Velasquez, Board Member.
Here.
Elizabeth Matthew Santana Garibaldo, Board Member.
Present.
Miguel Guerrero, Superintendent, Present. Fred Molina, Director 2 of Administrative Services.
Present.
Dinas Barca Diaz, Director 2 of Instructional Services.
Present.
Antonio Aguilera, Administrative Secretary, Recorder.
Present.
Jessica Rodriguez, District Communication and Translator Interpreter Clerk.
Here.
Thank you. Item number 2, adoption of agenda. Adopt agenda as presented.
Administration recommends that we adopt the agenda as presented.
Thank you. Any questions from board members on the agenda?
No questions, Mr. President. I motion to approve 2.1.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor by member Santana,
I'll second it.
second by member Lopez. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Let's move on to Pledge of Allegiance. Can Board Member Garay lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance this morning?
Salute. Pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Number 4, public comments.
We have no public comment.
Thank you. Let's move on to item number 5, general administration. Review and approve the Lamont Elementary School District COVID-19 Prevention Plan, CPP.
So we're going to review sort of what our game plan might be, a possible path to reopening our schools. And I say possible, this is just one of the scenarios that we can put forth to say that we're making an effort to bring back the students in person. A lot has happened since the last time we took up this topic. The governor has proposed new changes and a new plan, and in that plan includes certain criteria that were not part of the reopening plan that we went back about right around July that we approved. So there were some layers added to all the requirements of what we have to do in order to reopen if we're in person. And when I say it's fluid, it's extremely fluid, because I just heard today in the news that the CDC is going to release another reopening plan for us, federal guidelines tomorrow. So those changes are not included. That's a good sign. Those are not included in this. So I know that this plan that we're going to kind of discuss is going to be updated by tomorrow, because the CDC supersedes the state, and here we go again. But at least we have an opportunity to approve the latest plan that we need to have in order to reopen in person, 1, and 2, provide us a pathway. If we choose to go down this road, then we have a pathway of how to proceed. And I will cover this in the presentation. The state, Mr. Newsom, the governor, has proposed incentives to open for in-person instruction if you meet certain targeted dates. Now, that's why we're here today, to see if you want to choose that path in order to open and tap into some of those incentives. But we also know that that's possibly, based on our current conditions, that might not be a good pathway to take, just because of the COVID rates that are out there currently. But I did feel that at least you should be given the option to make that decision, to discuss it as a board, and to say, you know what, Mr. Guerrero, continue on the path, or you know what, Mr. Guerrero, let's direct the district in a different way that we need to go and postpone this at a further date. And then we'll deal with it when we come. And I know that I'll be back with you updating whatever we're gonna need to update in our plan for the upcoming CDC release of guidelines that are gonna be provided to us. Antonio, do you have the
Your PowerPoint?
yes, please. So this particular plan that we're going to cover and the components of it and the 4 pillars that the governor has proposed is something new to what we've had previously, and it's just another plan he had to do. And I'll take you through the steps. So we know that in December, the governor proposed the Safe School, certain things that we've already had in place and update certain things that we needed to have added to the whole criteria if we wanted to reopen. So he called it Safe Schools for All proposal. In it, it prioritized who we needed to get back into school as soon as possible. And one of the priorities is that we get the students that are the lowest grades first, make an effort to get them back. TKK, first, second, and third was his emphasis. But that was the #1 emphasis on his proposal. We know that there's a lot of research now that says students do not transmit COVID as rapidly as maybe adults do. So that was one of the pillars that he kind of said, we're good to open and we can move forward. There's still certain criteria we need to meet before we can reopen, and there's a 14-day average rate of COVID that we need to have before we can kind of engage in this. So this kind of takes us back a glimpse of about 3 or 4 months ago. We had the, and excuse me, I don't have my other glasses and I can't. So we had the reopening plan that we approved back in June, July. Then we layered it with a cohort. If you remember, we brought back the special ed kits. Well, that's another plan we had to also do. And then it incorporated certain components, but this Cal OSHA prevention plan is what we're going to be talking about today, which is a new layer that was added roughly in December. And then this COVID checklist that's in coincide together, when you blend those two points together, that becomes the COVID safety plan, and that's what we're here to kind of discuss. And then there was some state, after this 4 pillars, there was the consolidated school guidance pamphlet that was put out, or guidelines that were put out by the state to give us additional guidelines as far as how the COVID is impacting our schools and what we needed to do and update any of the additional plans we had in the past. And so we've taken pretty much everything that's out there now, all the different guidelines. So we had the California Department of Public Health provided some guidelines, evidence summary of TK schools and COVID-19 transmission, the blueprint for safe economy, which was the guiding principle before the safe open path that the governor proposed in December, and then small groups cohort guidelines of how we started back with the guidelines for our special ed students and so forth. And then we've always had the CDC provide some guidelines, and Stronger Together was also provided by the state. Well, we know that the CDC is going to release additional guidelines and or update this particular document, so we will need to make sure that we incorporate that when that happens. So you can see we've taken all these plans, taken all the guidelines necessary and preventions necessary to assure that when we do bring kids back on campus, when we do bring back our staff, that everything is aligned to what the state, federal governments, and local governments are telling us what to do and how to do it and where to do it. Okay. So as I said previously, the goal of this in-person instruction provided by the governor is that we bring back our students, our younger students first, that we target the spring of 2021 as our benchmark to bring them back, and then distance learning will be still an option for any parent that chooses to maintain under distance learning. So this doesn't force anybody to come back. It just gives them the option that we are providing in-person instruction. at our school.
Just real quick, Miguel,
sure.
on the distant learning, and do you foresee that going on past the current school year, we're in, the following school year?
Yeah, beyond that?
Yes.
If I would have to say, and the world according to Miguel Guerrero, I think so. I think that's going to be an educational plan from here on out that we will have the flexibility to add to our program. Hence, that's why everything that we're doing now, we're making sure that the structures are still embedded in our system, that it becomes part of our culture, because I truly believe next year we'll be able to offer that program as the main educational program for our students, which previously was not allowed. We had independent study, but it's a short term, and then we had home and hospital, which could be short term or long term. Those were the only two programs that allowed us to do distance learning per se. But now I truly believe that this will be part of our fiber, our fiber of what we can offer our parents for educational programs purpose. It's not the law yet, but I foresee it happening from here on out.
Thank you.
And then it said, if you're going to take this in-person instruction and move forward, you need to make sure you meet all these requirements. We have the COVID plan, safety protocols established. We did some. They were very intensive, very detailed back in July in our reopening plan, and now we added another layer that dealt more with the administration of certain things that we needed to do, i.e. the testing, i.e. the vaccine. Those layers were not back in July, so now we added those layers, we have protocols, and we have ways of kind of implementing that. And then the other thing, which has always been part of the system, but make sure that the MOUs are established with the unions and so forth and been approved and ratified. We're in the process with CSEA, we have it. We had one with LTA, it expired in October, we're going to renew that, it's coming soon. So these components will all be in place if we choose to reopen and meet the targets that the governor has set forth in front of us. Okay. The other component is that if you're not open currently, then you still need to make sure you follow the same protocols, but there's a 7-day average case rate of less than 25 cases for 100,000 population. So we're not there yet as a county, but the county's numbers are going down to possibly get us to that point. So that's a really positive movement in our case rates in the county, that it is getting to the point where we will be able to open with all the necessary precautions. Now, the plan for the governor that he released in December and the guidance came out in January basically talked about 4 different pillars. There's a funding there's certain funding attached to it if we choose to do in person. There's safety mitigations, additional ones beyond the ones we've had in the past. There's oversight and assistance, transparency and accountability that we haven't had in the past. So he added several components to this reopening in person in order for us to meet and to assure the public that we're taking all the necessary precautions. So the funding, once again, I want to kind of point this, that the funding is only proposed. It hasn't been passed yet by the legislation, the state legislation, but it will be passed in some form or another in the near future. But the current proposal states that if we had opened in February 1st or February 15th, we would be eligible for $450 per ADA plus the supplemental and concentration, an additional for all the supplemental concentration of $250. So basically we would be looking at least $700 per child if we opened before February, and you had all the other components that we're going to talk about. So that deadline has passed. It was too much of a crunch time for us. So we're looking at possibly, if all goes well, the March deadline, March 15th. Well, if we do choose the March 15th, that incentive goes down to $338 per ADA, and the supplemental enhancement bumps it all the way up to $525. So there's still opportunity for us to reap some of the benefits of the incentives that he has put forth, but at the same time, we as the body, the governance body, have the option to make the decision if this is a safe environment for our students and our staff to return. This is, like I mentioned, just a path to get us there, but it's not the path. It's not dictated to, it's not written in stone. It's something that we will have to make that decision as the governance component of our district and provide the guidance necessary to say yay or nay, or we can modify it, or, you know, it's pretty much open for discussion. Okay? Just want to reinforce that point. The proposed funding comes with some strings attached. Basically, the funding promotes, is consistent with in-person instruction, so we need to have students on campus. In-person instruction is defined under the current guidelines as basically having one grade level on campus. So you made it an option. Hypothetically, we pick kindergarten. We want all kindergartners to come back on campus. So we would make that and make those arrangements necessary to bring them back, and then provide the option for those individuals that want to stay in distance learning. So that's okay, we leave them there. And those that want in person, then we will proceed with the appropriate educational program to meet their needs as well. So that's defined open under the new guidelines. It doesn't necessarily mean that if we're at Lamont, you have to have everybody K through third open. It just means one grade level. So that's the technicality. You open one grade level, you're eligible for the incentive. We're good? Any questions? So the safety and mitigation components of this, the 4 pillars that the governor spoke about, basically is testing, surveillance testing. We've done that in the past. It's not a big deal. We did it. The only wrinkle, and if I think it's a huge wrinkle, is that we would also have to provide testing for students, and that's a tremendous amount of additional work that this district has to do in order to make sure that we meet all the different criteria. We had the personal protective gear already. We have a lot in stock. We have contact tracing protocols that are included in the plan that we had previously, but were refined and continue to be refined, because as we adopt this now, I know tomorrow there'll be different changes that we'll possibly need to kind of make in all of these areas again. But for now, we're going with what the guidelines are currently now. And then we have the biggie, which is the vaccination, which is another layer that we didn't have obviously back in July, but we have it now. So there's plans on how to proceed with that. So these are the 4 main things that are included in the safety and mitigation of his 4 pillars. And then I want to highlight this particular one because this one kind of dictates when we do the actual COVID testing on our staff and students. And there's certain protocols. If we had students on campus that that was in deep purple, which is 14 cases per 100,000, that particular rate, then we would have to do weekly testing of all our students who were physically on campus at that time. If we were in purple, we would have to do it every other week. And then if we're in red, we still have to do it every other week, and then it goes away on orange. So we wouldn't have to do that. However, there's also symptomatic testing, which basically says that if a student and or a staff member says, I'm not feeling well, I have a COVID-like symptom, then we have to test everybody that came in contact and or in that classroom if it happened in that classroom, student or staff. So that triggers a symptomatic test. So technically, hypothetically, if we were in purple and that happened in a classroom and they had already tested last week, well, guess what? We're going to test you again this week. So it would be consecutive testing for 2 weeks. Okay. And then there's a response testing. Now we know that there's somebody in the classroom and or at that site, depending on the contact tracing, that has an active case of COVID. Then we would analyze the contact tracing aspect of it and test everybody that had been in contact with them, with that particular individual. Once again, same scenario. If we were in deep purple, we did our symptomatic testing previously, our asymptomatic tested previous week, but there's now a case, then we test everybody again, and so we test them again. So that, when I say that that added a tremendous layer of, to our staff, as far as keeping track and keeping the testing protocols updated and going to meet the needs of these requirements, this is kind of what I mean, because we just kind of, now we have to test and continue to test and double up testing. And so that's a big strain on our system. So you can kind of get a glimpse of what our expectations are if we do open in-person instruction. Okay. Now the other components is, I feel very confident that we have plenty of PPE equipment. We have about 400 N95s that we currently have on stock, and we will pursue additional ones. The N95 face mask, which is almost a surgical type of face mask, is harder to get now, but we're in the process of possibly getting additional ones. But those are only required if the individual works in a certain environment, i.e. a nurse, i.e. the LVN, that comes in contact with a variety of students and individuals, i.e. our isolation tent that we still need to have for our students in case there's a student that comes onto campus, exhibits some COVID-like symptoms. We need to isolate them and monitor them to see if he continues with that, either send them home and or either give them a test and send them home. So those are the individuals that we will have identified as the ones with the priority for N95, as well as our special ed testing. So those individuals, not only the N95, but additional gowns and so forth. I mean, we have it laid out to, we've identified the position, the duties that each one has, and we'll provide the necessary face mask and or face shields. Now, there is something new to this that we have to explore, and we will make the appropriate adjustment. The face shields that we currently have in stock are the ones that just go right here. Now there's talk that the face shield needs to have a drape. That is very new since this plan came out. The plan has started implementing this. So the previous stock that we had, a face shield, we need to adapt them to now reflect the drape that goes under there. Okay, so that's a new twist that we need to kind of adjust to. The other thing about the face mask is you probably heard about the 3-ply face mask. That's also new that was added to this for the COVID. There's also talk that you can double up face masks in lieu of the three-layer face mask. So we're making those adjustments when necessary to assure the safety of our students is the utmost safety, and the safety of our students and our staff. Okay, so there's adjustments that need to be, because you got to remember, we've been stockpiling all of this equipment since day one, and we have a lot of it. But you can see that the twists of updating the plans and updating what the government's telling us has changed, and so we might need to adjust the current stockpile that we have to meet the current conditions that we're dealing with. And tomorrow, I can assure you, it's going to change. But for now, based on today, we're ready. The contact tracing is something that came after, and it was the Kern County Public Health Department kind of deals with that and assists us with that. And a lot of the forms that were necessary were not developed until almost the summertime, so we added that later down the road and have been updated at least 2 or 3 times since the initial disbursement of them. So you'll have a sample on the presentation of what those look like. And then the vaccination. Well, we are next in line. There's a slide on how we will discuss that in depth. And the biggest thing is, when are we going to get it? As of now, all they've said to us is that we're next in line, and so we will wait until they open it up for us, and then we're going to make it available. Another layer that has come to my attention for the vaccination is that some districts are contracting with a particular pharmacy to provide that service. So I'm doing the due diligence to find out what pharmacies could possibly come to our staff on campus and provide that vaccination to our staff. So we're working on that. That was a new layer that I found out yesterday, and so we're working to assure that we have everything planned for and or incorporated to make sure that safety is the #1 priority. Go ahead. And so you probably remember this page. This kind of comes out from the reopening plan that we talked about way back in June. Well, all those things that we talked about are still in play. We just added these other layers that are necessary. When students are coming onto campus, we're still going to have all that signage that we have. We might need to update it now to reflect the current conditions and or replace the ones that are currently being displayed because weather has an issue, has taken hold. And so we're in the process, the MOT is going back, revisiting all the signage they did, everything that they did, and updating and or replacing all the necessary things that we need in order to assure that we have the signage necessary for students to come back on campus, and the social distancing, the mask, and all those things. We're recalibrating to assure that everything's in play. We've also, since then, we've also gotten additional guidelines as far as face masks and what they mean, and how face masks are a vital deterrent to the spread of COVID. And so there's clear guidelines for both adults and students of when and where to use them. And it's all basically common sense. Just wear it all the time. And that's the message that we will drill to our staff and our students on the appropriateness of the face mask and the importance of the face mask. And then there's guidelines for students who do not want to wear a mask for whatever reason. It's not a medical, we have to separate it. It's not a medical condition, but just a choice, right? I choose as an adult. Well, it's telling us if we follow the guidelines that were released by the state government, that those students will be automatically put into a distance learning program. That we will not. We have the right to say you're going into the distance learning if you choose not to wear a mask. But that is if it's not a medical condition. If there's an exception for medical conditions, we will allow the students to make the appropriate accommodations. What are those appropriate accommodations that we've already purchased? We're talking about providing a little shield for them to work. They'll be in a kind of like a little bubble if we need to do that, specifically when you deal with special ed students. There'll be times where those individuals, those students, can't wear a mask for whatever reason. We'll provide a shield. If the shield cannot be worn or for whatever reason, then we will purchase, we have the appropriate plexiglass cubby holes type of deal to prevent any spread from happening. So we're taking all the known precautions that we know and trying to implement them into our protocol to assure the safety of our staff and students. And then there's students exception, and basically what this one says is if a student has a medical condition, then we need to make exceptions for them, and we kind of plan that out for us. We have the necessary shields that we're going to need, or plexiglass bubble that we're going to need in order to make sure that they're protected, and their classmates and staff. Face covering for staff, basically the same requirements. We're following the CDHP, that's the California Department of Public Health. We're providing that. They also have particular, this one gets a little sticky because they're special need kids. Sometimes you don't need a face mask, you do need a shield. But the drape comes into play, which is something new that we have to either buy new shields with drapes or adjust the shields that we have and purchase the drapes. So there's still some work to be done in that area, but I'm confident we will have them for those that need them if and when we open. When and if and when we open. Also, if you recall, this is straight out of our reopening plan. Social distancing is going to be hampered throughout our campus, and certain guidelines. The reopening plan is still in focus and still in play, and a lot of those protocols are coming straight from that plan that we're currently going to implement when we return to in-person instruction. So all those things that we've done, they're still in play, and we're still going to follow them. We're still using the signage. We're still maintaining no recess. Lunch, we'll take a whole different look, like we've talked in the past, possibly in the classroom and or outside, and only limited amount of spacing will be, or limited amount of usage in the cafeteria will be allowed. So all those things are still in play. We still haven't forgotten about them. This plan is still an active plan, but there's other little layers that we had to kind of include to assure that we meet the appropriate guidance. We still have the protocols. We were lucky, obviously, when we started to bring back students, so we looked at our protocols and analyzed all our protocols, and we're on the right track for transportation. You know, we used to, when we brought back the special ed kids, we had little cones, the kids came, and they all pretty much fell into play. They were all following those guidelines, they were all following the protocols that we implemented to assure the safety and security of all our students. So I'm confident that we can redo it again and start it up again and implement all those different protocols. So they are still in play. Entering and exiting, we're still doing the passive screening. That means before school, the parent needs to look at their child and report if he or she has COVID-like symptoms. If that's the case, keep them home, observe them, and make sure things don't happen. If they come on campus, then at the gate, temperature will be taken, a brief script will be given to either an adult. They'll read that brief script that basically said, do you have any COVID-like symptoms? We'll take the temperature, and if anything comes out, then they would be excluded from entering the class and then put into an isolation. I know it's not isolation, we changed the name, but that's what it's said.
Yeah, the break room.
The break room, because we felt isolation was a little harsh, but they'll be put into a secure area and monitored until it's safe for them to be released back into the classroom or released back to the parent. So all those protocols are still in line, and are still part of our process. Same thing for staff. Staff will still continue. We take a little survey every morning. Our passive, we report that yep, we're good, no symptoms, no temperature, so you can come back. And even some, when they come back on campus, there's still somebody at the gate taking their temperature and asking that script again. So we have the passive screening and the active screening that were part of the guidelines when we started this whole process back in July. And then the COVID reporting. We have strict guidance and protocols on who do we report to, when do we report to, and how do we report to. There's forms. We added this component. There's forms that we need to fill out. Those forms go to the Kern County Public Health Department. They review them, and in consultation with them, they gave us guidance as far as how to proceed and how to take appropriate action from there on out. So those are in play, and this is the contact tracing, the Exhibit 1. Every time there's any type of contact tracing case report, then we fill this out. All of them have been trained, and when I mean all supervisors and or principals and vice principals, administration has been trained on how to utilize these things, when to report it, and so forth. And then once we do the contact tracing, we put everybody and anybody that's been in contact with that active case. We report all this stuff, we send it to the Kern County Public Health Department, and then they provide some guidance as how to proceed from that point. But when you do symptomatic or response testing, this is the list that we would do the response testing on. These individuals that are marked in here would automatically be included in the response testing. So that's why the contact tracing, that's why separating them into cohorts is extremely important, because you can narrow down how much contact tracing they've had with anybody else, if and when there's a case. So this is extremely vital. And then we have the latest. This hasn't been updated. I kind of debated if I should have it or not. But this is what the Kern County Public Health Department has for us as of late. We're still stuck on vaccine tier 3. We're hoping to move to phase 1B, which includes education. And from what I'm hearing, that we're moved up. I hear everywhere, we're a priority, but I don't hear when. So we're still waiting for notice from them to give us the green light to provide the vaccine to all our staff. So that, like I spoke earlier, there's a new layer that possibly we can contract with a pharmacy to bring on campus here and provide the shot to our staff and come administer it. And so that would be helpful when we get to that point. But I can assure you, if that's allowed and you guys give us the go-ahead, we will set that up as soon as possible. When we are eligible, or when they release the vaccines for us to do it. Okay? But as of now, this is where we're at. The oversight and assistance for this governor's plan is basically we monitor in real time. There's guidance from an agency that provides input for us and guidance as far as how we're going to perform and how we're doing things. We have access to an individual that will answer the questions that we need. It's a good thing. We haven't used it yet, but it's something there available for us if we run into some difficulties with a particular process that we implement that's maybe not working well. So if need be, we'll tap into that. And then if we reopen, we will have to provide our reopening status. There's a database now that I submit every other week and inform the state what our instructional program is. It asks if we're in person, if it's in-person hybrid, or just distance learning, whatever the case, I mark it. And so now there should be a website up and running where, as a parent, I can view what each district is doing under the current conditions. So it would indicate, you know, Lamont's just distance learning, or if we choose to go in person, it would indicate in-person instruction and distance learning. So that's available for us. Safety plans, we need to have those in play like we talked about, and it should be available as of today, hopefully for the approval. The levels available for COVID funding and school transmission rates will be supplied to this particular agency. And then there's a hotline for parents to report if they choose anything of concern for safety from our school, on our district. So there's a layer of accountability and transparency that we hadn't had in the past, but now we do. So it ups our game to make sure that we are totally in line with whatever it says in here, and that we protect and maintain safety as our #1 priority. This is a very tentative schedule that we set forth. A path, like I mentioned, possibly that we can pursue if local conditions allow us to, one, and if you guys give us the blessing to do so. But you can see currently we're still on the A-B schedule, so we split the half, we split the staff in half, and only A comes this week, B comes next week. It allows for cohorts and monitoring who has active cases, so it limits the impact a possible active case can have on our staff. We also plan, if allowed, mod severe start March 1st. That is that one cohort that we started way back in November, but because of the local context that we were dealing with, the rate went up, and so we had to kind of make that call. So we would bring them back. At the same time, we would bring preschool, TK, and K. And then we can layer after that, 2 weeks later, would be first, second, and third. And then layered after that, grades 4, 5, 6 by April. And then possibly April 19th, we will have everybody back in play. If we did this, we would take advantage of the incentive provided by the governor. If it passes, I think it's going to pass. It's just maybe the numbers might be modified. But in general, this would allow us, because we will have TK as the grade that we're open. We have K as the grade that we're open. And it would allow us to take advantage of that. If conditions allow us to do it, and if it's the directive of the board. And then we can continue with our path. Now, what would that instructional program look like? Well, if you remember, we had the hybrid program back, the cohort hybrid program that we had back in the day that we were gearing up to do. So we would still have that. That would still be in play. So we would split the class in half. One half would be an in-person instruction Monday, Tuesday, deep cleaning on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. That half A, would be distance learning. Half B would be this cohort B, distance learning Monday, Tuesday, deep cleaning on Wednesday, distance learning on Wednesday, and then Thursday, Friday, they'll be back in play. This will allow us to facilitate the surveillance testing that we need to do to assure that it doesn't get, if God forbid there's a case and it spreads, this allows and limits the spread of that particular case. Yes, sir.
What if a teacher declined to come in for in-person instruction?
At this point, it would be considered, they can take appropriate leave if they're entitled to, but the one thing about all this is that the COVID relief leave that we had in play previous to December 31st is no longer applicable. So now it would have to be,
They would have access and or available any appropriate leave, like Dr. Guerrero just mentioned. From there, it would be a no-show situation, and we would take it from there in terms of a personnel situation. But so I would be reaching out and consulting the individuals that I would need to and take next steps. But they would be basically, as is put, absent without leave, so to speak.
They have the right to teach from home, distance learning.
at this point, that option hasn't been decided as far as when we return back. We need to kind of get together possibly and kind of see if we're going to allow that. If we allow that to happen, then it creates some other stumbling blocks for us. But it is an option that we can provide. We're setting up our system, our technology under the assistance of Mr. Reyes to where we're setting up each classroom to allow that to happen.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Well, to jump on Ernesto's thing, so what about students that the parents don't want them to come back? How are we gonna provide this learning for them?
What's in play now and what our tentative agreement with LPA is they'll have two schedules to choose from. So each grade level at each site will choose how they want to deal with the distance learning aspect. The two choices are you can deal with them concurrently. That means both the distance learning and the in-person instruction cohorts will meet together at the same time. Okay? Or option two is that in-person instruction happens, the distance learning component is doing distance learning, and then after lunch, the distance learning gets the teacher. And then the other ones go home and continue on the distance learning. So there's that flexibility that we're providing to our teachers to allow them to do that. It has to be decided by grade level. Each grade level will have to decide what option they want to do and implement as a whole. And that's kind of the agreement we made with the unions. It was brought forth by a particular site that they wanted this flexibility, and upon analyzing and kind of hearing their concerns about having both the in-person and distance learning at the same time, they brought some good concerns, and we heard them. And then one of the beauties about this is then they provided an additional plan, an additional option that from an administrative standpoint still provides the engagement, participation, attendance to be accounted for. So we left it up to them. We thought that was a good choice, and we were flexible in that aspect because it came from the teachers that had concerns because that's a whole different ballgame. Right now we're just dealing with students on a computer and doing distance learning, but now you're going to add a layer of physical students in front of you plus the ones virtually. And so, some of these things we have no exposure to previously. It's all new, and so we have to adapt as things go by. You had a question, Nafi?
So will the teacher be giving her full weeks of lessons, or will she start all over? So will she give lessons, she or he give lessons Monday and Tuesday to the in-person, and then give those same in-person instructions Thursday, Friday? Or is it going to be you understand what I'm asking?
Yeah.
So it would be continuous. So if it's, they do in-person instruction Monday and Tuesday, they continue wherever they left off, asynchronous now at home, distance learning. And then vice versa too.
That makes sense, thank you.
Yeah.
That answers the question.
The intent is that everybody gets the same thing, whatever was taught that day, regardless if you're home or present, you're gonna see the same lessons. There are some great benefits to that, specifically because a kid could go back, hypothetically, I'm in person, I didn't get the lesson, that same lesson's gonna be taught after lunch. Virtually, I can plug back in possibly and get re-exposed again to that particular lesson and possibly, you know, it'll be the second time, maybe I get it the second time. So just to get us to that point has been somewhat monumental in the sense of just the technology aspect that we needed to implement, because not all our classrooms were set up to do distance learning. And so we modified, we purchased a variety of technology to allow us to do that. We're assured by Mr. Reyes that we will have this stuff in play, ready to go when and if we return back to in-person instruction. So next steps, what's next? Establish a timeline for reopening. Like I said, the previous slide was just very tentative. We can adjust it as we please, as conditions allow us to. Approve the COVID prevention plan, which is for today. We've been in consultation with both unions to assure that we're taking the appropriate steps. They've seen the plans, they understand the plans, and also to provide input from their perspective as far as what should be included in the plan. So we've done that, or we are in the process of doing that. And then this is the coordination of the new testing, the surveillance testing, the COVID testing. That's a new wrinkle because we shifted from Quest to a labs called Valencia Labs. So the whole protocol, and what I mean by protocol is how do we do it, when do we do it, how do we ship it, how does it get administered, how do we provide the information to Valencia Labs to who gets tested, what week they get tested. So we were under Quest, we had that somewhat ironed out. Well, now we have to redo the whole process again. With the added stress that we're not just dealing with adults, now we're going to be dealing with students. So that's taken us some time. We're in the process of ironing that out. That's one of the key components to the plan as far as why some dates had to be changed, because we can't open any sooner, because the process that we're undertaking is quite extensive to just get us to the point to where we can do the surveillance test under the new regulations that assure us once you get through this hurdle, things will get easier. Well, we're working on it. And so Mr. Molina can kind of give you a brief update as far as where we're at and so forth.
I have some questions
Sure.
here before. I didn't want to interrupt you, so
Oh.
I'm going to go back a little bit. When you talked about the second pillar, which is the safety and mitigation, the vaccination part to that, is that was that for students and staff, or is that just for?
Right now, the CDC guidelines only state anybody older than 16, is my understanding. For the first time possible, I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago, I read that there is some talk of extending that down to a lower, lowering that age, but the age ability. So at this point, the threshold is 16. So no, we are not asking or instituting the requirement of having vaccine for students. It's just all strictly adults at this point.
We were talking about both the CPP plan which is the COVID prevention plan that we're talking about today.
Yes.
Is that going to be working in conjunction with the reopening plan that
Yes.
does
Yes.
one supersede the other one, or is it going to be
It's
working together?
pretty aligned. The leadership group here at the district office has been working on this to coordinate it, to blend the necessities or the requirements to assure that they don't contradict. So I had Dina review it and go over it and align it to make sure that nothing is in this plan that contradicts the previous one. There might be some contradictions because the guidelines have been updated since then, because what we knew back in July when we did the reopening plan, we knew that. And now there's so much more information that has been provided by the federal and state agencies that are part of all this, that have oversight on this. And so things have changed, and so we've updated both to reflect and make sure that we're all in line and that there is no conflict to the best of our ability.
The tentative dates that you put, that we have on there for reopening, does springtime fall, or spring break fall in between these dates?
Yes, if you look at the March, that's why there's such a large gap between the.
6th and 19th?
Yeah, because spring break falls within that. April 6th is our first day to coming back from spring break. That's why there's a gap in there, because it takes into consideration a week's worth of spring break in this. If we choose to go down this path. It's not, like I said, it's not concrete, it's just an option to take advantage of some of the components of the governor's plan, if we choose. If we choose not to, these dates were subject to change and make them fit to when we feel as the governing body of this district comfortable to bring our students and staff back.
It just worries me because the surges of COVID-19 have happened during their breaks.
Yes.
So, and it was the same discussion that we had when it was gonna be the fall break, if you guys recall when we were gonna, so it just worries me that there's a break in between these dates.
Yes, it is worrisome, because as we know, one thing sure about COVID is when there's holidays in between, there's a surge. That's been proven time and time. And the issue here is going to be the vaccine. Because if we can get the vaccine anytime in play, ideally, they will make the vaccine available for educators. I thought every indication that the county has given us, I thought this week was gonna be the week that we would start that process. There is no news on that. They even canceled the meeting that were scheduled to meet yesterday because there was no news. So that to me says that it's maybe we're lucky to get it before then, and that a window for educators comes February 22nd or possibly even March. I also read something that the possibility of everybody having access to a no more tiered system will open up in April. So that means it's open to whoever wants to take the shot. That's what I heard and read as of yesterday. That the timetable, because there's a lot of frustration for a lot of folks, when am I gonna get the vaccine? That they're obviously going through the priority situation, one, and two, soon that priority will be taken out and it's just gonna be for the masses. And they said April was the kickoff to make that available. So what they were projecting is that April, May, by June, pretty much we will have what is herd immunity or whatever in play. So.
The vaccination is based countywide, right, the availability?
Yes.
Because it depends on the county, correct?
Yes. One of the frustrating things, at least personally for me, has been is reading other counties are already vaccinating educators. And we're, and it's all based on supply and demand. I mean, based on supply of the vaccine for that particular county. And they chose to do it and not, or whatever the situation is at that particular county. So yes, it is, that's why you hear in the news that certain counties do. And then here, I haven't heard anything on that. It's been at least 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And so this, when I was doing this, I was gonna push it even further out because it makes me very anxious to even start to talk about it if there's no vaccine. Because ideally, and what I was thinking would happen, the information that I had back in in January, late January, was that this week was gonna be. So that's why I set this whole thing up, thinking that we would have the vaccine, the windows open for educators to go, and then we can proceed with our reopening plan. But I did not have, I did not get that news, and so, but I still felt that we needed to provide you guys the information, to make the decision if you want to choose that path and take advantage of the options, the incentives we have by the state, or do we just stay status quo until conditions allow us to do so. So I didn't want to make that decision. I'm hoping for some guidance and direction in this matter, to continue the path and see where it all takes us.
That was my last question.
Any other questions and concerns? You guys feel comfortable?
Thank you, Dr. Guerrero.
Mr. Medina, were you gonna?
Did you want me to review a little bit of the testing, the new testing?
The COVID testing?
Yes.
Yeah, the surveillance test?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The switch over, okay, so the transition. If you remember back a little bit, I want to try to, there's a lot of information here, so I'm going to give you the essence of it. And please feel free to ask for any clarification. When we were with Quest, we put together a cohort, 4 different cohorts of testing by each school site. We added district office to those cohorts. We submitted the name of the individual, we submitted the address of the individual to Quest. Quest took all that information, they processed all of it, they put it together on labels and on test kits, and they sent them to us. We paid for that. It was expensive. Bottom line was, we switch over to Valencia branch labs, it's a lot more cost efficient. It doesn't cost us nearly as much, about 1/3 of what it cost us with Quest. But with that savings comes an effort on our part. It's going to cost us time and energy in coordinating this. So our site administrators are receiving an onboarding email from the people at Valencia Labs. They take this information, they have steps to create an account, review training materials, to register, here's the key, register participants. So there's processes. As they register participants, I go on, I get on and I register the district office complex. So we're going to have a district office complex testing site. We're going to have, each school site is going to be a testing site. We're going to have 5 testing sites that we're going to test. Similar to what we did with the others, we had only 4 of them. Where it comes in, as the principals get the information, in registering the individuals, we have some work to do. We have to send out to all of the staff, as we reconfigure from 4 testing cohorts now to 5. So these lists over here that we had at 4 that we sent to Quest, we now have to reconfigure them and make them and turn them into 5, making each school site and district staff to facilitate testing at each site. So we've got to reconfigure those lists. Those lists have got to go to the principals. So as they complete the onboarding process, and that onboarding process has steps, but the biggest step is when they send this registration material to each of us at the district office. When I get it, I get my group of, say, 80 to 100 employees. I send them this email on how to. So this email, I'm going to have to send an additional document that gives them step-by-step instructions. because so that's what we're working on now. So when I send them this, they have this UR code. There's one for staff, and there's one for students. So what all staff are to do to help the process, this is where they're going to register themselves. They register themselves. I take my information, I go in, and I take this email, I can post these, as a principal, I can post these all over my campus, all over here at the district office. I take my phone, I put it in camera mode, as if I'm going to take a picture. I go up to that URL code, and I put it as if I'm going to take a picture, and it brings up the registration for me. I make sure I'm on the staff one, right? Not the student one, on the staff URL. It brings up the information. And I enter the information there, whether it be on my phone, whether it be on my computer, and I register myself to get tested. So the key is there, that's the beauty of it, that everybody can do this, if we get good compliance with that. Chances are we may have some difficulty with that, and staff will not be able to use their phones to do this. So I tried it, and our nurse tried it. I use my personal phone, and I use my work phone. And in either phone, I couldn't get it to work. Yolanda tried it, and she got it to work real quickly and easy. She registered on her phone. So what I needed to do, for example, as we're there testing, as we come up and you come to get tested, say you have not been able to register using your phone, the easy way. Then you come up and we have to have a team there that's going to register them using a laptop. We add the individual to the site like I did mine, because mine wouldn't work. So I went in there and I added myself using my laptop, as we're going to do there at each testing site. So that creates the need for a team there at the testing site. A team of 3 individuals with 3 laptops as we test. One individual, for example, the nurse, is going to be monitoring the testing of the individual, that they're swabbing correctly and they're putting it in and they're packaging the information. The other 2 individuals are going to be sitting there and they're going to be registering individuals if and when they weren't able to register on their own, using their phones. So we have to be ready for that. So we might have a number of people that come up. So that's our preparation. Basically, we're registering, we're entering the information. That's going to take time, and that's going to take energy, that's going to take staff. That's the process that we're working with. It's going to take a little bit more time. But ours is geared up to be ready by the dates that Dr. Guerrero has shared there. So we have a team working together now. We do have some work with the group lists and reconfiguring, but we're working on those now. So our plan is we're going to be ready for that first group of students. That first group of students, for example, as we start back with staff, we have to be ready to test. So on that date that we have to be ready as a district to test staff here at the district complex every 2 weeks, right? That's the schedule we're on. Other staff that are on site, the 3 or 4 or 5 teachers, remember we're beginning with a special ed cohort, so that staff will be on site, and the aides, the 1 teacher, 2 or 3 aides, the office staff, they'll be at the school sites, so we'll need to be able to test them as well. So our testing will go from Monday through Thursday or Friday. We'll be able to test those individuals. The bulk of the people, when we first start, just with the special ed cohort, the bulk will be here at the district office, because we're going to return from that AB schedule. And there'll be pockets of people at the sites, because there'll be small groups of people there. So our testing will be minimal at first. That'll be how we start. So our work now is to practice. We met this morning. to get the technology, get all our principals up and ready, and get them to send that information out to their staff. We're having some glitches there with that aspect and them receiving this email. But some of it may have got, those mails will probably went to spam, they're spam. Our filters are very strong. So they just have to retrieve those and we're starting the process with them. So that's the biggest difference. It's adding a little bit, but it's putting a lot on us, but it's nothing that we can't do.
Thank you very much. Any questions from board?
I guess that besides the approval of the COVID prevention plan, are you okay with the path, or do you prefer just postponing until the vaccine is readily available to us? Because to me, those are like the two options we have, unless there's another option that you guys come up with. But I just need guidance as far as where to go, how to do it. Like I said, this is just a path. It's not the path that we can take. We can adjust, modify, delete. Then the ultimate path, or the other option could be that we just stay distance learning throughout the whole, till the end of the year. So it's just, you know, I need some direction so we can align ourselves and prepare for whatever needs to be prepared. Because there's a lot of, as you can see, there's a lot of energy and effort and time in our with our staff that we need to provide. We need to prepare whatever direction we go.
So I think the question for me, Dr. Guerrero, is if the board adopts this afternoon and the CDC comes out, whatever regulations tomorrow or this week, could we come back and readjust the
Yes.
plan that
Yes.
we're approving?
Yes.
Okay.
It's just the guidance on the tentative timeframe. One of the, yeah, that's all I need guidance on. Just, do we reopen? Do we continue on the tentative one? Do we adjust it? Do you give me the freedom to adjust it as hypothetically we get news that we stick to the plan? We're gonna meet again February 23rd. I can give you an update as far as where we're at. But I don't, yeah, I think the earliest that we can even bring staff back, because one of the things, once you bring staff back, we're technically supposed to have the surveillance testing occurring now. Okay? And we're not doing it just because of the process that we're going through, but we're on the verge of doing that. By February 22nd, I think that we'll have a lot of that stuff ironed out, but that then we can roll out to our additional staff coming back on, and then students, obviously. So I just want some guidance as far as how do we proceed? What do you guys feel comfortable with?
Board?
Have you taken any service to see if parents want to come back, their kids come back to school?
Yes, the last survey we did was back when we were gearing up in November, if you recall. We were gonna bring the K grade level, roughly, right? Was it November?
Yeah.
If I recall correctly?
Yes.
Yes.
And what we gathered then was that your average class is about 22, 24. So about 10 of those individuals wanted to come back on average. This is just average. So that's about roughly 50% wanted to come back to in-person instruction, and the other 50% wanted to stay on distance learning. Has that changed? I don't know. I couldn't tell you because we haven't really taken the gauge on that since then, but we can possibly put something out again.
I think, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I need some clarity. So let's say that my classroom, 10 of my students want to come back. 12, no, that's 20 class, right? So 10 want to stay home. But we have the cohorts, so are we gonna split 5 and 5?
Yes, yes,
So it's not all 10 one
no,
the whole week?
no.
Okay.
no. We would split that cohort even further.
So they're, basically those 10 students will only get 2 days and the teacher will be with 5 students every day.
Basically, correct? In that scenario?
Well, we could do it both ways. it could be done, because let's say 100% of students come. Then a class has like 22,
Roughly.
roughly. So
Eight
if
groups,
we would
15
have to, if we do the hybrid schedule, the AB, then you would have 11 students on cohort A and 11 students on cohort B. So, but if we only have like 50% of the class coming, we could also have that scenario that Dr. Orero said, the 5 and 5, or we could have
The 10,
this cohort, the 10, yeah.
the 4 days, that way they get more in
Because
person.
if you remember, there was some discussion, if you saw all the different guidance, there was a group cohorts. We still need to follow that, and the
Mhm,
groups
yes.
have to be under 16.
Yes,
So we still need to follow that. So
But in this scenario where there's only 10, you're still under the 16.
Exactly. So in your scenario, it would work to continue to make sure that we're still following that particular guideline as well. So,
but you know, even if they just do 2 days, the other 3 days, the teacher would be able to continue the 3 days of distance learning with the whole class, with the distance learning students and with the in-person students, rather than meeting with the distance learning students in person after they meet with the in-person students. So the teacher would be able to meet with all the students in the morning those 3 days. So that would make it more standard for all the kids. If it would be just 2 days and then the other 3 days distance learning for everybody.
there will be scenarios like you're talking about where the feasibility of having everybody here, or everybody that wants in-person instruction to come, and it'll be a single cohort rather than splitting it up. Because you're right, there might be a scenario in one of our classes where out of the 22, only 8 want in-person instruction. So you would have 4 and 4, well, I think it would be convenient to have all 8 then in that case, in that particular case. The numbers will dictate kind of what options, so it's kind of, we want to hear from our staff to see kind of what their thoughts are as well, to assure that, we put forth the best effort and the best program possible.
Thank you. Any additional questions or concerns?
Me personally, I'm concerned that the vaccination hasn't come to our educators for the 22nd deadline, and I don't know if you guys are rushing it for the 22nd to have the whole process in order. I don't want you guys to feel that pressure. You've been under enough pressure this whole year. So, do you think you'll be fine by the 22nd?
I wouldn't worry about that. We need to get that in place as soon as possible. We need to practice it, so we need to get there. I would like for us to get there by tomorrow, the next day. So, the date that we're ready, we're gonna be ready, but that's just gonna mean that we're ready to a greater degree. So, yeah, I wouldn't worry about, we're good about being rushed. That's gotta be something that we're ready to go, and when we worked it all out, it's just gonna give us more time to plan and prepare and to think about all those little things that can go wrong. So we're good, but thank you.
Thank you. Any additional questions, concerns?
So what I'm hearing, just to summarize, is keep status quo. We'll wait for the notice of the vaccine, and then that'll trigger everything. And we'll adjust the time frame. Is that an accurate indication? Just to kind of make sure so we know. I hate to kind of,
Are we taking action right now?
no, I just need guidance.
Yeah, so it's an approval to give them guidance.
Yeah.
So just to clarify, I feel comfortable enough with the option of approving this today, but also if there's any changes in the next few weeks, bringing it back to the board to
Okay.
make those specific changes to the plan. I do want to piggyback on not these concerns. Those are valid concerns, not the, but I think as advocates of children, we need to start bringing our kids back, but in a timely manner. It has to make sense to our community and to our staff.
Cool. So then what we can do, then our plan of action is continue setting up and gearing up. On the 23rd, we'll reconvene because we have a general board meeting, And then by then, we will kind of gauge where we are with the vaccine. Hopefully by then, they've made it available, might be available the following week, but at least we'll have some type of indication and make the modifications at that point.
Any additional questions?
So what are you saying, Jesse?
Okay.
I mean, it's,
Are we, so you're saying we're ready to, let's do it, open up.
well,
For the 22nd.
yeah.
Is Jesse?
No, all we're doing on the 22nd is bringing staff back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then, I know, and
Oh.
then go from there.
And then go from there.
I'm okay with that too, Jesse. I think we need to do something. That's
But it has to make,
It has
like
to
I
make
said, if
sense,
anything
yes.
changes
Well, of
in
course.
speed,
Yep.
then obviously that's gonna,
It's gonna change.
yeah, it's gonna change.
Cool. Well then, yeah, then the first layer, like I mentioned, on the 22nd is bringing staff back. We're off the AB schedule, everybody's here. The component of surveillance testing will be in play, and all the other components for contact tracing, they're already in play. And then on the 23rd, we'll gather again and say, look, as far as students coming back, these are the conditions. There is a vaccine, there isn't a vaccine yet, we're not in line, we are in line, we're projected to start, then we'll make those adjustments at that time. Comfortable, everybody comfortable?
That's fine, I think so. I think it gives us a target. We have to do something.
So,
Okay,
Cool.
all right.
sounds good.
Is there a motion on the floor to review, to approve the Lamont Elementary School District COVID-19 prevention plan?
I'll make a motion to approve. 5.1.
There's a motion on the floor by Member Garay, second please.
I will second that,
Second by Member Velasquez. Can we please pull row on this item?
Member Santana Garibaldo,
Yes.
Member Lopez,
Yes.
Member Garay,
Yes.
Member Velasquez,
Yes.
Member Otondo.
Yes, motion carries. Let's move on to item 2, approve the purchase of HVAC, is that
Ionization?
ionization system for Johnstone Supply?
Yes, one of the layers that I didn't even touch about, that's also part of the governor's plan is this ventilation, having appropriate ventilation in our classrooms. Currently, I believe there's, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Brock, about 3 classrooms at Lamont, specifically at Lamont, that don't have windows. Therefore, they can't open to kind of circulate the air. Okay, because that's one of the key components as far as bringing staff back and students back, to make sure you have appropriate ventilation to limit the spread. So in lieu of, we can't replace those particular classrooms, so one of the layers that we can add is this particular system, and I have Mr. Brock and Mr. Phaedra to kind of take you through the process of what it is, because like everything, I've learned a lot, and this is another piece that I've learned that I didn't even know existed, but we are here, and I think it's a good option, and they'll kind of take you through that process.
Hello, everybody. Good morning, or good afternoon now, I think. This is just some information we have on one of the products to eventually prevent the spread of airborne pathogens. It's not necessarily just COVID-19, but pathogens in general. And so there's many different means that you can do this in the air-controlled environment. There's filters, there's ultraviolet light, there's ionization machines and things like that. I don't have all the pros and cons of each method. I was trying to read some more about this. I did have a little bit of information that the ultraviolet light in the outdoor air, there were some studies that I didn't get too into that for people that sell these types of products that said having an outdoor circulation is not effective. In order to just open all the windows and the doors, it's not an effective to get everything that's inside the room. And so these products are one of the options that we can utilize in order to try and prevent the spread of infectious diseases, as well as attempt to just make the air itself cleaner and healthier from other types of things that can cause allergies. This came to our attention from our HVAC tech that we have out in MOT. Been with us, I think, about a year now. About a year. This is a product that he had suggested, and so we're using his expertise and experience to kind of continue from here. He's stated that it's something he has on his house, and his son has allergies, and they receive benefits from this. And so if you could just go to the next slide, please. And I have some, this is information that is in your packet. I pulled this picture off of their website in color here. I'm just going to read what they have. It's also was the item. The iWave air purifying device that installs on any duct air conditioning system. When air passes over the iWave, ions produced by the device reduce pathogens, allergens, particles, smoke, and odors in the air, creating a healthy environment without producing harmful byproducts. iWave uses patented technology called needlepoint bipolarization to create equal amounts of positive and negative ions. When these ions are injected into the air system, they break down passing pollutants and gases into harmless compounds like oxygen, carbon dioxide, nitrogen, and water vapor. And this is the illustration that they have, where effectively you have the air that is polluted in some manner, and it's pulled through the vent, and then this machine will ionize, send out ions, positively charged particles, which will affect these substances. When these ions come in contact with the viruses, bacteria, or mold, they remove the hydrogen molecules. Without them, the pathogens have no source of energy and will die. The ions also attach to allergens like pollen and other particles, causing them to band together until they are large enough to be heavy and caught by the ventilation's air system filter. iWave's technology generates the same ions that creates with lightning, waterfalls, ocean waves. Nature uses energy and shear to break apart molecules, naturally cleaning the air and producing a healthy environment. The only difference between iWave's technology and nature is that iWave does it without developing harmful ozone. And so if we could just go to the next slide, please. We have a little demo here. This is what they have showing how it works. I think if you press the next slide, it just starts playing too. There you go.
A simple demonstration shows how iWave prevents mold from growing on bread over time. This shows how iWave kills pathogens downstream of the device, at the coil, and in the living space. Another demonstration shows how iWave products remove smoke from the airstream within a short period of time.
And that's the product on the top right there. Slide there. And so that was just that was a visual demonstration of what we have just explained is occurring. The next slide here, I believe it's going to be ionization in schools. They had some information that I was just going to read as well that I think it was important for us to have. The video's always messed up, huh?
Is that another video?
No, there's not another video there. I'll just go ahead and read it to you as we're getting that. Ionization produces a high concentration of positive and negative ions, delivering them to the space via the ventilation system. Within the air system, ions attach to particles. When they combine, become larger and more easily filter. When ions come in contact with pathogens, they disrupt the pathogen's surface protein, rendering them inactive. The ionization process kills mold, bacteria, and virus in the evaporator coil and throughout the breathing space. It also reduces allergens, smoke, odors, static electricity, and dust particles. And this is an important note, some of the pros and cons that we had. Many ionizers treat the air quality in classrooms at schools and universities without creating ozone or other harmful byproducts. Confirming the ionization product has been tested and meets the UL 867 standard for no ozone emission is the best way to certify this. Clean outdoor air near waterfalls and on mountains and near ocean falls contains about 5,000 ions per cubic centimeter. Engineered ionization devices replicate the ion levels in the cleanest environment by creating the indoor levels of ionization and providing the ions necessary to kill the pathogens, control odors, and reduce particles. Ionization often requires no maintenance or replacement parts. Some models are self-cleaning and feature universal voltage for easier installation. Ionization should be part of a comprehensive indoor quality plan to make the breathing zone healthier. An important thing to note is that it has to utilize the system in order to work. And so it's not something that they send out an exact thing, it pulls it through, and then inside the system is how that it adds the ions and things. You can go to the next slide. And so they have the I-Wave advantage is that they have the most effective air purification method. Other common air purification technologies require ongoing maintenance, such as bulb replacements every 2 years, and there's other types of costs that drive up the ownership. I-Wave purifiers have no harmful byproducts, and most of the models require no ongoing maintenance and have no replacement parts. In fact, I-Wave R's patent-pending self-cleaning design, you can have years of maintenance-free performance, and they also have a 3-year warranty. And if you could just go to the next slide. And on here, they had it independently tested I'm thinking, neutralize or kill the COVID-19 and other related viruses. This was on their website. I tried to click on it to make it bigger because I couldn't even read it on the website, and it didn't work. So I was going to do some more research to see if I could find some more information on the study. But from what they're saying is they've had an independent lab test it, and that it is effective at reducing the pathogens and on the breathing and non-porous surfaces. So it does help prevent against the coronavirus. Okay, you can go to the next slide. And this is the model that was chosen by our HVAC tech. I'm not sure the differences in the various models, but I did find a little chart, and it seemed like this one had a lot of the features and everything that we would need. It's a proven technology that they say it's low maintenance. It reduces odors, mold, and other particles in the air. There's no replacement parts, total cost of ownership. They claim no maintenance and it's self-cleaning, though I have read that sometimes it's like 5 years, there's a little thing you need to clean or do something. I don't know. It's mentioning on there that the I-Wave R, maybe this is a new advanced model that they don't have to do that type of process anymore with the advancements that they've made in the technology. It's UL tested and it comes with a 3-year warranty. And then on the next slide, it'll talk about the 3-year warranty. So we just want to make sure that we follow the guidelines, that we do this. You have to make sure you have the proof of purchase. The warranty comes into place when it's installed by a licensed HVAC tech on your system. The warranty, though, does not cover labor or return charges or damage or things from improper installation. But we do have a certified tech that would be covering those type of labors or things if they arose in the future. The warranty process would mean that we want to make sure that we document this all effectively, when it was installed, by who, maybe even a copy of his certification, just so we have everything in place for that 3-year period. Okay, the next slide. And so I tried to do a little bit of research on the pros and cons. You know, I live by the philosophy, don't ask a barber if you need a haircut. And so this is I Googled this, and these are some firms and things that came up. Henderson Engineering, pros and cons. They said advantages, little additional pressure drop to the system, requires no re-engineering on the existing system. So some of the solutions you have to re-engineer the system or do other changes. This is just a thing that can be placed at different locations depending on the purpose or depending on the model of AC you have. The disadvantages, emitter wear and calibration requirements, only captures particles from the duct air. As I was stating earlier, it has to go through the duct system in order for it to be effective. If it's something that comes in outside or it's somewhere that it doesn't actually have the airflow through, it's not going to be effective. Potential to create an ozone byproduct. And so that was an important thing that I heard a lot of people saying, but the firm that we're using states that this product we're buying does not produce ozone, and that they've tested it against the coronavirus, so I'm assuming that it's going to be a good fit. On the next slide, I also have another pros and cons. This was just a blog that I found where they sell multiple products. The important con was that some older versions of ionization technology can create harmful ozone, and I think that the manufacturer we're going with was aware of that and has made changes. So as far as I know, the literature I've read, our product should not produce ozone and should be effective. And we should receive all the benefits of including killing the coronavirus. And then it also just helps with the airflow and adds a better air for allergies and other things, especially with all the farmland and other things that we face year-round. Can go to the next slide, please. Then this is just any questions that you may have with what I covered, or we have our MOT director here who may have more technical knowledge if you have any questions in that aspect.
I'd like to add a little bit if I may. So in this room right here, obviously the air conditioner is going right now. After 30 minutes of run time, they say on the last slide that Gary had up, 99.4%. kills COVID. 99.4. So all ducted air, this entire room is ducted. So I think a lot of times what we see around the district, what I've seen personally during when we had school back in session, was that a lot of teachers, staff want to open a door to get some fresh air. No need for that now. You're going to get fresher air with this ionizing air, smoke. Our HVAC technician has this technology, as Gary said, in his own home. His child has bad allergies, and with this system in place, he is symptom-free inside his own home. He has stated that his wife can burn an incense candle and you can't smell it. So not only the potential for this district in keeping our children and staff safe and healthy, also odors, mold in our valley, the dust, particles. So basically the ionizers will attach to particles, making them bigger, which runs through the filtration system. Currently our district is doing MERV 9 filters all throughout our entire district. A lot of people were wanting MERV 13 filtration. Running a MERV 13 filtration through our systems not only restricts your unit, makes it work harder, but you get blow-by. So a true MERV 13 filter is not a 13, because that air will go around the corners and edges of that filter, and thereby taking a MERV 13 and knocking it down to a 6. We run a 9, which is a true 9. This technology will increase those particles. The ions will attach to these particles, making them bigger and caught by our MERV 9 filters. I'm very excited about this technology. I think it's another layer of protection for our staff and children. Also, a lot of companies are offering this technology. This is just one product. And also we had a company here in Bakersfield come out to the district and give us an informal quote of what it would cost to potentially install one of these systems per unit. That price came back at $700 and something dollars per install, per unit. I can get these units now at, I believe, $350, $360 a unit in our own HVAC technician, who is an HVAC instructor. Very proud to have him with our district. He will be doing the installs at roughly $360 per unit.
Yeah, just another thing to add for you listeners, our HVAC tech. I forget the exact amounts, but I believe it was, the original price was $360 a unit, and then he said, since we're buying so many units, can we get a deal? He ended up getting us a $30 discount per unit. We ended up, if we can proceed with the quote, we probably save, it's around $7,000-ish from just his actions, and then we'll save a lot from all of his installation and expertise that we have within the district.
Question?
I have a question. You said that the person that gave us an estimate said $700 per unit, correct?
Correct.
And then you said that we're being able to get it for $360, and that we're gonna be charged another $360 by our technician?
No.
No, that's the cost is of, basically, half of the 700 quote is the cost of the product and half is labor. And so basically the 360 cost is us buying the unit and auxiliary things that are needed in order to attach those units, etc. And then basically that's the cost. So our costs are $360 to do it ourselves, or farm it out and it's $700 around those numbers.
Thank you for that clarification. And I'm imagining there's gonna be 2 people doing this together?
I'll put another maintenance technician with our HVAC technician.
Just because I'm seeing what you're purchasing, it seems it's for 2 people.
It will take significantly longer than it would for me to hire an outside contractor, but we say prevailing wage by the hour.
Is there a residential and commercial air cleaner?
I believe this is the residential version. I don't know if they have a commercial version or not.
Most of our units that are throughout, all units with, throughout our district are residential.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Any additional questions or concerns before?
The expected time frame to get it done and approved?
If I started today, I would probably, approximate date, 2 months.
And that includes ordering the product and starting installs, or just installs? Maybe 2.5 then, maybe?
I've been told the product is on hand, and we can get that as early as tomorrow. This would be at the installs. I believe roughly, our technician said he could do 5 a day. I forget the number. How many we have.
We're buying 251 units.
Yeah, 250.
That's how many classrooms we have, or how many?
It's also for all, any AC in the district, yeah. So every, if we proceed with the plan originally, areas that are not trafficked heavily by students were not included, but we are including them now because it makes no sense for the students to be walking through a school office or a teacher to come to the district office or things like that. And we also found that the funding supports it to make these type of improvements in any type of facilities that the district operates.
Thank you very much.
And so with this plan, every AC in the district will have this system on it and be filtering in every single room. And there will be some that may have multiple, such as cafeterias or things where they have a larger space.
Thank you. Any additional questions? No. Is there a motion on the floor to approve item 2?
I'll motion to approve item 2.
There's a motion on the floor by member Lopez, second please.
I'll second.
Second by member Santana, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Let's move on to item number 6, closed session.
Can I-
Yes.
Just, I would like Mr. Brock to kind of update you on our latest construction project at Lamont. We hit a huge milestone.
Thank you, Dr. Guerrero. Pull up some current video that I had taken yesterday and today, this morning, from the Lamont site itself. What we have up here is the delivery yesterday of the modulars coming from Manteca up north. And they were all brought out to the grounds there at Lamont. Had to open up an area on the south side of the fields there just to get to those 12 modulars into that area. Quite as you can see, quite a feat on just getting them all in that space, and they utilized almost all of that field. Once they're brought into that field, now what they'll do is they sat overnight, and Mr. Reyes is going to play our other video of those getting set. Instant classrooms. Now they're lifting those classrooms and putting them on their foundations.
This happened when?
This morning.
This morning.
So from yesterday to today, this is how quickly they're moving.
Because I've been driving by the area today, I haven't seen them. They weren't, but I seen the foundation on it, so.
Next Tuesday, they're gonna pour the other set of footings that you see there, the concrete. And then it has a cure time, and then they'll be doing this all over again. I believe this was scheduled, on the original schedule, it was February, I know we've talked a lot about the 22nd today, but I think it was the 22nd that they were supposed to set these, so we're ahead of schedule.
And how many classrooms?
That's half, so what we had 8, that's 4. So a little bit what's going on there, and things have been going very smoothly, no hiccups, knock on wood there, and I'm very happy with the progress that's taking place there. So
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good job.
Okay. Good.
And as we know, we're gearing up for Alicante's project in, what is it, February the 18th at 10 a.m. Groundbreaking will occur. Obviously, mark your date, and you mark your calendars already on that, and so we're excited about starting that project too as well. So, and I can't stress how happy I am with the contractor, because I think they pretty much they're on top of everything.
They have, they've been very easy to work with. They communicate. I have monthly, weekly meetings with them and progress reports, and they communicate out very well. Even before you get into that site, the superintendent there has questionnaires to ensure that all the COVID precautions are taking place on that site. Been very easy to work with.
And from our perspective, or from a superintendent perspective, I'm pleased with the process, the overall process, because by now we would have received several change orders, and everything's been taken care of. Just like the only thing that has surfaced that was unexpected was that, what was it, that tank that they found out there?
Sewer line?
That
They
was the
did
one
find
thing.
some underground utilities that had been abandoned prior, but they had to ensure that they were abandoned by running cameras down the lines to see
So,
what we
and
could.
they've taken care of it, and I mean, everything's on target as they projected the timetable, so it's going too smooth. I'm starting to see. So,
At least something is right.
very, very pleased with it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We will go ahead and go into closed session at 12:42 p.m.
And we're out.